Well, welcome to the first ever Jane Addams Branch webinar. It's an Illinois ERA update with two speakers telling us what we can do next. Please type in your questions into the chat box and the presenters will answer your questions at the end after both presenters have spoken. And please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat box. Not everybody on the webinar today is an AAUW member, and we'd love to know what brought you to our webinar. Some of you may not even be in Illinois. That would be very interesting to know why you've joined us. I know that not all states have ratified the ERA, so you can tell us which state you're from. If you're not a member of AAUW, please go to aauw.org and click on membership and find out how to join AAUW. If you're already a member of an AAUW branch in Illinois, you can join the Jane Addams branch by sending me a check for $5. That would be great. Just send an email to the address you already have. That's aauwjaneadams@gmail.com, and I'll tell you where to send your check. Right now, I'm going to ask Elaine to introduce our first speaker. Elaine, could you introduce AJ for us? Thank you.
But first, we want to do a quick thank you to our sponsor. We've received a leg up grant from AAUW Illinois, and they have the application and program ideas that might be supported by this type of grant. This is just for AAUW branches, so that's another reason to join. And applications can be submitted twice during the year. The deadline would be November 30th or June 30th. And on the web page that's shown on the screen, you have all the details. And if you have questions, the coordinator for the applications is Jennifer Urish, and her email address is on that web page. So go to the web page, you'll find suggested ideas and some of the recent grants that will give you ideas of what kinds of programs can be applied for using the Leg Up grant. So we really appreciate that to help us get started with our webinar series. And tonight, we're very happy to have two expert speakers. The first speaker is AJ Conroy, and she is a practicing attorney and member of Chicago Incorporated AAUW branch. She's a passionate Equal Rights Amendment strategist and activist. She's a social media manager for ERA Illinois, Equal Pay Day Chicago, and the Chicago Craftivists. She's also in her spare time mother of two children in Logan Square, and her favorite superhero is She-Hulk. And our second speaker will be Kathryn Modisette. She's an ERA advocate from Washington, Illinois, near Peoria. She's a member of the National Organization of Women and the Blono for ERA Coalition. She's on the Leadership Council for the Tazewell County Progressives and the Progressives of Washington area. She's a statistician for a substance abuse treatment program. And we're happy that both of these experts have joined us tonight. So now I will turn the presentation over to AJ.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. I am really excited to be kicking off this inaugural webinar that AAUW Jane Addams branch is hosting. I think that this is going to be great for Illinois, great for Jane Addams. It's a wonderful way for us to share ideas and communicate with each other. And of course, I am always happy to talk about the Equal Rights Amendment, which is my favorite topic. And I'm excited to spend the next 20 minutes or so telling you more about what AAUW has done and what other groups have been doing around the state and what we can do next. So that's a picture of me. I'm testifying in Springfield on behalf of the Equal Rights Amendment and as a AAUW member, and that was one of the scariest, hardest things I've ever done, and I don't ever want to do it again, but it was a fun experience. And as Elaine mentioned, my favorite superhero is She-Hulk, and if you don't know about She-Hulk, you should look her up because she is awesome. She is an attorney for other superheroes, and she's got a really fun social life, and she hangs out with Iron Man, and she's awesome. Okay. So I'm going to talk first about the recent history of the Equal Rights Amendment. I think people are generally familiar with what happened in the 70s, and then most people think nothing else has happened after that, but that's not true. There's been a tremendous amount of activity. So a few of the highlights that I want to point out are in 1997, there was a law review article published in the William and Mary Law Review discussing the legal basis, the legal argument for why the ERA is still active and why it can still be ratified using the states that have already ratified, and which is 35, and getting 3 more states to ratify. And the sort of nickname for that is the 3-state strategy. And the 2 big pillars of that are the historical precedent of the 203-year ratification path of the Madison Amendment, which is the 27th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It says that that Congress people can't give themselves a raise, and it was introduced with the original Bill of Rights and didn't get enough states at that time, and then every once in a while we get another state, and then it sort of like the ball started rolling in the 90s because, you know, super popular, who's going to be against giving Congress people raises, and it eventually passed. The other pillar is the legal precedent of Coleman v. Miller, and that's where the Supreme Court basically says, you know what, this is all on Congress. Congress can decide its rules. Whatever is in the Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, you know, can't contradict that, but it can add timelines or not have timelines or decide what is timely. So after that, that sort of galvanized some activists who maybe had been dormant or not really dormant, but started to get some more interest. There were a bunch of articles, Ms. Magazine, the American Bar Association National Magazine did a cover story on it, and several states started introducing in their legislatures resolutions to pass the ERA. Illinois was one of them, and in 2003, the ERA resolution passed in the House, but not in the Senate. Then time passes, 2014, the ERA resolution is introduced in the Senate, passes in the Senate, but doesn't have enough votes in the House, so it's not called for a vote. But still, people are working and organizing and working and organizing, and there's just sort of groundswell that's happening. In 2015, Patricia Arquette wins the Best Actress Award at the Academy Awards, and in it, she name drops the ERA. You know, huge, very exciting, lots of articles. Meanwhile, the Illinois State Bar Association passes a resolution that as an entity, it is going to support Illinois ratifying the ERA. And at the meeting where this happened, there were all these attorneys wearing ERA buttons. It was very cool, and that's what's in the top corner there. Then in 2016, there was the premiere of the documentary called Equal Means Equal, and AAUW hosted the, along with other organizations, the Chicago premiere of Equal Means Equal, and I'll talk more about that documentary later and why that's a great tool. And the Chicago Bar Association, sort of spurred on by the Illinois State Bar Association, hosts a forum on the Equal Rights Amendment. It's a continuing legal education panel. And on the panel are both Lou Lang and Heather Steens, who are the two legislators that sponsor the Equal Rights Amendment legislation in Springfield. Also, the Illinois Solicitor General, whose name is David Franklin, and he also happens to be a former Supreme Court clerk for Justice Ginsburg. He's also a DePaul law professor. And then we also had, I think, two other attorneys, and Larry Suffernan, who is the lobbyist for the CBA, and also a Cook County commissioner. And they all talked about the Equal Rights Amendment. They talked about the varying legal issues, and that presentation is still on YouTube, so you can watch it. So before we get too deep, I want to just quickly review what it is we're talking about when we talk about the Equal Rights Amendment. The most important section is the Section 1. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. It is so short you can tweet it, and I recommend you do if you're on Twitter. And if you're not on Twitter, you should be. The other two sections, it's for Congress, and Section 3, 2 years after ratification. So it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. Not scary. It's not crazy. It's not gonna do probably most of the things that people who are afraid of it think it's going to do. But we'll get into that. So 4 decades after the last state to ratify, which by the way was Indiana, and I'll let that sink in for all you Illinois folks, Indiana ratified and Illinois hasn't. Urgh. But Nevada ratified on March 22nd, 2017. Nevada had people on the ground who had been wanting this and working for it, working for it, and then they finally found their window of opportunity when the Nevada legislature turned Democrat. Now, this shouldn't be a partisan issue, but in some places it is. And for Nevada, that meant that they could finally vote it in. So they introduced it and passed it in about a month's time. It was lightning speed. And I think that is part of what made them successful, because they were able to do it so fast that opposition forces could really not, they really didn't mount much. So Nevada was exciting because it I think, really spread the message of the idea of the 3-state strategy. It got people talking about it. As you could see, just like across the country, there were articles about it, and it put a lot of energy back into Illinois after sort of a disappointing 2014, which was the last time we were very close. But people are talking about it. You see lots of blogs about it. People are tweeting about it. So while things are happening in Nevada, in Illinois, I was part of a project where it was a little bit cheeky, but to sort of get the word out and to sort of make it interesting and memorable, we sent happy birthday cards to legislators. And the way that program worked, it was pretty easy. There was a pre-printed card. If you wanted to send one to your legislator, you signed up on a website, you put in your address, your voting address, and then we looked up your legislator and sent it, handwritten to the legislator, so that it had a very personal touch. And I got after they all got mailed out around March 22nd, which was the anniversary of it, the Equal Rights Amendment passing out of Congress. I was talking to a friend who was a lobbyist, and she said, she was talking to a legislator who was, by the way, pretty much anti-ERA. I got a ton of mail on the ERA, and I looked her up, and I think the legislator had gotten 3, maybe it was 4 cards, and that's nothing. But the fact that she thought that was a ton was, to me, a real validation that just a little bit of effort goes a long way, especially when it's a little bit fun and it looks high impact. And a bulk of those cards came from AAUW members, I'm happy to say, but they were from all over the state. So meanwhile, there's a few groups who organized a march on Springfield, and they had a platform with many items, but one of the items was the Equal Rights Amendment. So that was great to, again, sort of keep circulating, keeping it top of mind that the Equal Rights Amendment is a going concern. It is something that Illinois has not yet ratified, and it is something that we can ratify. So getting it out there. And most excitingly, the ERA Yes was on the front page of the Chicago Tribune. So that was very exciting. And I think the people holding those signs are now members, to give them a shout out. So while this march was being planned and scheduled, the legislators were thinking like, oh, there are all these women coming down to Springfield, what should we do? And so one of the things that they did was schedule a vote in the subcommittee for the ERA resolution. It had been introduced, but as usual, it just gets referred to committee and sits there. But this time there was a hearing. So there were, I think, 3 people who spoke as proponents, and then there was 1 person who spoke against, and it passed out of the subcommittee. And then the next day, it went to the executive committee, and that's the group that I testified on behalf of AAUW. Between the subcommittee hearing and the executive committee hearing, there were 2,900 proponent slips filed on behalf of the Equal Rights Amendment. And that's not, I didn't round that up, that freakishly, that's the number between the two. And then I think there was like maybe 30 or 40 anti. So if I can give for a moment a plug for witness slips, they're kind of a pain to do. The site is not user-friendly. So to me, this number means a lot more. It's not like a change.org click yes. It's not like a Facebook like. I mean, you have to type in all this information, and then it tells you messed up, and you have to do it again, and back and forth and back and forth. So these are really perseverant people that did this. And witness slips generally are a nice way to indicate support for a bill that comes up in hearing. And the next time there's an opportunity to put out witness slips for the Equal Rights Amendment, of course, we will be spreading the word. And those are usually a pretty short turnaround time, you know, just like 2 to 3 days. And I think there's going to be an upcoming webinar on witness slips. So I encourage you to stay tuned and check out for that. And I will say that that's pretty much an Illinois only thing. It wouldn't really be helpful for non-Illinois people to present. So all these things are happening, and meanwhile, I would say forces are gathering. AAUW goes back with sort of familiar partners like the League of Women Voters, IFBWC, people that have sort of boots on the ground all across the state, and then start also organizing and collaborating with new partners. Groups such as Indivisible Illinois, and I see some of you are logged in, so hello, welcome. Organizing for Action, which is the spin-off volunteer group that grew out of the Obama campaigns. Action for a Better Tomorrow, which is formerly known as the Pantsuit Nation. And then also members of the Illinois State Bar Association, especially their Women's Committee, and the Chicago Bar Association, and several subcommittees on that group have been active on the Equal Rights Amendment. And I didn't mention earlier that the Chicago Bar Association has made an official statement that they're supporting ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. So let me just explain quickly what this graph is. Those are the the state legislative districts, and those dots represent the various groups and where they are. It's just sort of a helpful visual to figure out, like, where are our supporters and friends. So as many of you probably participated, in January, there was a huge march in Illinois. I think there were 7 sister marches, possibly more, and people were angry and coming out, and they didn't just go home and take off their pink hats. They started joining. And AAUW, League of Women Voters, I know for sure, in the creation and growth of Indivisible, Action Illinois, there are all these groups whose memberships are swelling and looking for actions to work on, things that are accomplishable. And the ERA is a great project, a great issue to work on. It's, I mean, I've joked with some people that it is the gateway drug type of issue. It's just one of these things that it's like a fundamental issue and everyone can agree on. And I think that's been part of the success of collaborating with so many groups and getting different groups to coordinate and collaborate to go visit their legislators, because, you know, not many people think this is a bad idea, it seems. So anyway, so let me talk about Equal Means Equal. This has been such a fabulous recruitment tool. It is a documentary. It's about 90 minutes, and it goes through maybe 7 or 8 different issues, areas where the laws seem like they should be gender neutral, but really just screw women. They're just really not at all fair, the way that they're enforced or the way that they're not enforced. And she goes through, the documentarian, his name is Camela Lopez. She interviews people and really personalizes all of these struggles and illustrates why we need the Equal Rights Amendment. So the Gender Equity Fund, which is a 501c3 entity of Illinois, AAUW Illinois, they purchased a copy of the DVD after being the party that sponsored it when it had the theatrical premiere in Illinois. And they've been making it available upon request to all sorts of different groups. So that DVD has gotten like crazy mileage all over the state. And every group that views this documentary gets angry and wants to do something. And so for us, that is great, because we're able to step in with scripts, with letters to the editor, with postcards, with, here's the name of your legislator and here's what we think he or she wants to do or not do. So, call them, write them, etc. It is just a really great, energizing activity. And you can, by the way, it is available on iTunes and on Amazon. So if you want to just sit in front of your computer and watch it, that's great. Even better, invite some friends over and all of you watch it, and then do a postcard letter writing party afterwards. So all this activity is happening. There's energy for it. But the big hurdle in Illinois has always been that a supermajority is required to ratify any constitution to the amendment. That is part of our Illinois Constitution, 60%. And so those numbers are 36 in the Senate, 71 in the House. And there have been, in the last few months, this mass exodus of legislators who have announced that they are not running. And like 2 weeks ago, I think my slide said 25. Now I'm pretty certain the number is 29, but I've also heard 30. And it's people who have been in position for a long time are deciding not to run again. People who are even 1 or 2 term people are deciding not to run again. Is this chaos an opportunity? Yes, that's what our people that we trust in Springfield that know about these things are saying. Yes, this is an opportunity. And I don't want to get into too much specifics, but I'm happy to do it on a one-on-one basis. But it's looking good. We do need a bipartisan group in order for this to pass, and we are working on that, and we're getting some great headway. And I don't want to steal any of the thunder that Kat's going to talk about, but I will definitely give all props and praise to the Blow-No group, Living to Normal, who have been working really hard on legislators and have gotten just the ball rolling. So the dates that you should know and put on your calendar are October 24th through 26th. That's the first week of veto session. And there is hope that if we get close enough in our head count to the 36 and 71, that it will pass the Senate, because the numbers there we're pretty confident about, and then it'll be brought up in the House. So around the 24th, 25th, 26th, expect to see some activity. And if you can come down, especially on the 25th, I recommend it, or come up. And then the second week of veto session is November 7th through the 9th. So if you're unable to attend, we'll talk in a minute about things that you can do. But so jumping back again, because lots of things are happening simultaneously. September 16th is Constitution Day, and that's the day where we stop and pause to think about the Constitution and what a great document it is. And I agree to that, but there's just one little thing that it needs to be added. So that was sort of the theme of our Constitution Day. So again, sort of learning the lessons from the positive feedback of the birthday cards, doing something a little bit cheeky and sending Constitution Day presents to legislators. And we focused people on the key legislators, matching actual constituents with their legislators, and had a copy of a book called Equal Means Equal sent to them. The book is the same title as the documentary. They're on the same topic, which is the Equal Rights Amendment, but they're unrelated. And the book I recommend to you. It's available at, finer booksellers everywhere. It's less than 200 pages. It's written in English, and it goes through, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 decisions that were before the Supreme Court and how they may have been decided differently if the Equal Rights Amendment had been passed on the original deadline. Sent them out through Amazon. So legislators were getting boxes from Amazon, and who doesn't like getting boxes from Amazon? That's exciting. And then we also did follow up with each legislator with more specific information from the constituent about what is happening right now on the Equal Rights Amendment. The other thing that happened for Constitution Day was a letter to the editor campaign, and coordinated all the major markets in Illinois, with the exception of Champaign and Urbana, sent letters to the editor of all the major papers in those media markets. And Peoria picked up 2. So again, I'm going to wait for Kat to talk about that because she was one of them. And still hoping to do another round of those. The trick with letters to the editor, as many of you may know, is that it either needs to be commenting on something that was already in the paper, which is something we can't control, or something that is in the news. So it's sort of waiting for something that's in the news to talk about it. And now that I say that, I'm thinking about several things that are happening in the news, because stuff is always happening, right? So Harvey Weinstein, that would be a perfect hook. So, okay, I'm going to make myself a note and work on that next. The other thing we did is lots of social media messaging, Twitter and Facebook and all that good stuff. So now what is happening? A bunch of stuff that you can do. So one thing that we've been working on, pushing on, I've been working, and Joanne, also with AAUW, she is the Illinois Policy Co-Chair for AAUW. And then we've been working with an illustrator in Texas, who's the niece of an AAUW member, working on a coloring book, or it's an activity book about the Equal Rights Amendment in Illinois. And it's got great pages like a word search and a maze and a really great story about Ida B. Wells and Constitution math and 10 Illinois women you should know. It's been great. So the fundraising for that is on generosity.com. There's the website for it. We have enough for the minimum threshold to print, so we're definitely going to print them. This is the only question now is how many more. The more the merrier kind of a thing. And I will say that I've sort of like paused printing of that on the the optimistic hope that we ratify in the next few weeks, and then it'll be a celebratory coloring book. If not, we'll go back to the original plan. More letters to the editor, and legislator visits. This is what we need most. So please call, leave a voicemail. A letter at this point is getting kind of slow. Call, visit. Wear a pin. You can make one of your own or buy one on the internet. Social media. So put out your own messages about why the Equal Rights Amendment. If you go to the website, passtheera.org, they've got really neat images that you can just cut and paste, or follow my Twitter, which is Malamviries. And just retweet what I've sent out, or you can retweet what Illinois Now tweets. There's a bunch of other people who are tweeting all the time about the ERA. Just signal boost, push. So I mentioned a possible vote sometime in the week of October 24th. That date isn't known yet, but when it's known and the word will go out, if you can make it to sit in the gallery, not to protest and wave signs again, but just to sit as a visual support, that would be great. And witness slips, again, if there is something that can collect witness slips, we'll put the word out for that. So how do you contact your House representative? So the best website I've found for its interface is just really simple, is openstates.org. And what I recommend you do either right now while you're listening to me, I give you my permission to split your interest, or your attention rather. Go to that site, put that in your phone so that you always have it available because there's always something coming up. And it'll tell you your state representative and also your state senator. So you can call them right after this presentation is over and leave a voicemail, and then follow up, and then follow up, and then follow up. Send a letter to the editor of your local paper. If you need a sample, go ahead and ask. You can write it yourself. All good. Host a house party screening for the documentary Equal Means Equal. Again, it's available on iTunes and Amazon, and the Equal Means Equal website has even a discussion guide that can talk you through it. If you haven't read the book, Equal Means Equal, I recommend getting it so that you can answer questions like why, or is that still a thing, etc. Repost Facebook messages about the Equal Rights Amendment. One of the biggest problems, the biggest hurdles we have about the Equal Rights Amendment is that people think that it is either already passed or that it isn't an option. And so letting people know just 2 more states are needed. It's fun to watch people who hear that for the first time because they see the possibility and they see that it's doable. Again, visit your legislator. Have I mentioned that before? So I'm going to end on this lovely graphic that was printed by the NPR Illinois, and it goes through what's going on. And above there, shameless plug for eraillinois.org, where I've got a place that you can send your address information if you want to keep updated on things. And it's got links to graphics. It's got links to history, recent history, the coloring book, and the social media links are on there. So if you can follow and boost those messages to your groups, that would be awesome. So I just spoke really fast for a long time. So I'm going to take a pause, and I know we'll take questions at the end, but thank you for listening, and hopefully I have sparked some ideas about what you can do. And now I'm really excited to hear what Kat has to say, because I know she's been doing some awesome work.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see right now. All right, thank you very much, AJ. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing downstate, fill you in on some of the things we've been doing to ratify to help get the ERA ratified, and then I'll end with just some pointers and information on how you can contact your legislator. So in March, the Peoria chapter of NOW held an ERA birthday/trivia party. We had questions on women's history, and we had birthday cake and grab bags and prizes, and we charged $10 for a ticket to attend, and we had about 30 attend, and we raised funds for screening of Equal Means Equal, and we had lots of fun in the process. And in May, we partnered with Bradley University's Gender and Women's Studies Department for a free showing of Equal Means Equal. And we ended, after the movie, we had a presentation on the history of the Equal Rights Amendment and the history of it in Illinois as well. We had about 30 attend, and 30 got fired up for action, and the press also attended and did a story on it. In July, the ERA Coalition of Bloomington Normal held a swanky rooftop event at the Hyatt in Bloomington. They had live music, a raffle, a silent auction, and a dessert bar. And they had about 200 attend, including 3 judges, 2 mayors from both Normal and Bloomington, 2 state reps, and several aldermen. It was a wonderful turnout. In August, the Peoria NOW chapter held an ERA Allies meet and greet. This was just a meeting of the minds for local ERA efforts. We had about 30 or so attend from all over, from local businesses, the League of Women Voters, the local teachers union, and others. And we just discussed ways to galvanize efforts for the ERA. And we also had a reporter from Peoria Public Radio attend. and they ran a story on it throughout the day, the following day, every hour. Cool. Last month, the ERA Coalition of Bloomington held a rally for the ERA, and we had quite a few wonderful speakers, including a Republican and a Democrat state rep, several aldermen, candidates for upcoming elections. So right here we've got Dan Brady, our Republican rep, and Lou Lang, the sponsor of the bill of the ERA in the House. It was quite a wonderful experience. For Constitution Day, we had 2 letters, the editors, that were published in our local paper, the Peoria Journal-Star. And we had many, as AJ pointed out, there were many people across the state sent a copy of Jessica Neuwirth's Equal Means Equal to state reps, their state reps. This month, the League of Women Voters in Joe Daviess County held a letter writing party, and they had a wonderful turnout. They wrote handwritten letters to their reps asking for the support of the ERA. And we had a wonderful graphic artist created these graphics for us. We have one for each of the reps that we're targeting, and we've just been trying to distribute them on social media and whatnot. Some other efforts that we've been working on, we have a petition with over 2,000 signatures. We've made ERA Yes car magnets that we've been selling or giving away to people to put on their cars. The ERA Coalition in DC sent an email blast to all of their Illinois members, which was about 550, just asking them to contact their state reps and support the ERA. We have teams all over Illinois reaching out to their Republican reps, and we have some phone banks in the works. And for all of our efforts, we have had been blessed with lots of great press coverage. We have press in local papers and in public radio, and it's really exciting to see all of it get some attention. And this is just a flyer that I've been handing out as well. I really like this flyer. Okay. And I have some suggestions when it comes to reaching out to your state rep. There's lots of ways you can do it. However, in person is best. We've found that actually making an appointment and going in to visit with your state rep, talk to them in a down-to-earth conversation with their constituents, looking them in the eye and explaining why it's important to you, really is the best way to influence your legislators' vote. You could do multiple visits by small groups. Those are great, especially for those representatives who are on the fence. Phone calls, letters to the editors, and just letters in general are good, but not as good as those in-person visits. But the worst contacts are canned emails. If it looks like a template or an email blast, representatives seem to just ignore those. When you do visit with your state rep, I have a few suggestions, some do's and don'ts. Do make an appointment. Visit in a small group of people, like 2 to 3 people. You don't want it to be overwhelming. Keep it professional and respectful. And do stress that this is a bipartisan effort. We need bipartisan support, and we have it. We just need more of it. And frame the issue around, frame the discussion around fairness. Don't assume that you have a yes vote from your Democratic rep. Since we need a supermajority, we cannot afford to lose any votes. So we want to reach out to our Democratic reps as well. Don't visit in large groups. Don't be argumentative or make a scene. Don't hold a protest in their office. Just try to keep it respectful. Don't demand answers now, although that would be great. Maybe all you can do is plant the seed for them to think about it later. And don't let the discussion get sidetracked by talk of bathrooms or abortion. When you do talk to your rep, we have some suggestions on what messages to go with. The ERA is about fairness. It is about equality for Democrats and Republicans, for men and for women. It's about equal pay for equal work, which means stronger families with healthier incomes. And we do have at least 5 Republicans who have agreed to vote in favor of the ERA, and more that are likely to vote yes. So this is a bipartisan effort. And the ERA is not a bathroom, abortion, or a military draft bill. I have found, whether talking to constituents or representatives, I found a few messages that seem to resonate the most with people, in my opinion, and so I would suggest trying to bring them up. And one is that Illinois has had an equal rights clause in its constitution since 1970, but our rights should not end at the state line. So we're a 47-year test pilot for the ERA, and it has never impacted abortion or a bathroom law. Now, some will say that we have equality under a patchwork of other laws, and to some degree that's the case, but laws can go unenforced at any time, and they can be gutted, as we've seen, with changing our administrations. However, an amendment to the Constitution would preserve those protections and create consistency across state lines. Also, in 2010, the Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia said that the U.S. Constitution does not prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex. And Afghanistan's constitution contains an equality clause. Why can't ours? Some other ways that you can support the ERA is to recruit others to contact or visit their representatives, send letters or make calls to your rep, share, repost, just share on social media any supportive ERA effort. Hold a mass viewing of Equal Means Equal. This is really good to get people fired up and motivated to fight for the ERA. And you can join us for ERA Lobby Day at the Capitol Building in Springfield on October 25th at noon. Wear purple, color of bipartisanship.
11 a.m.
11 a.m.? Okay. Well, whatever you do, please keep in touch. This is the most important. When you have any intel on how your rep plans to vote, please email me. If there's anything I can do to help, I'd be happy to help you. Please contact me. I can send you phone scripts, letter template, ERA fact sheets, or legislators' voting records on women's issues. But I'm here to help. Just jot down my email address and keep in touch, please. Okay, so I turn this back over to Elaine. Do we have any questions?
We have a question from Joanne. Joanne asks, what inspired the Blono group to get started? Do you pronounce it Blono?
Yeah, I think Kay Moss should answer that if she's available. She is in charge. She's one of the founding members of the Bloomington Normal Group, and she's been my mentor through this. I couldn't talk about how they got started. I kind of was just late to the game, telling you guys what they've been up to. Kay, do you want to share anything?
This is Kay from Bloomington Normal, and one of our catalysts was Nevada passing the ERA, and of course, we were all just stunned after the election, the inauguration, and so indivisible groups popped up here in town, and we had lots of indivisible training, and so we had an awful lot of people, a lot of women who were motivated to do something. And then Nevada came along there in March, just exactly at the right time because it gave us a focus. We had been against absolutely everything, and this gave us something to be for. And so I think that was the first thing we did, and we had a wonderful march rally for Planned Parenthood, and lots of women got together. There were 1,500 people got together for that, and ERA just came along right at the right time. Our effort started then with a petition. We were going to eventually have a rally, and we were going to pass around the petition, and just sort of one thing led to another. We went to our own local representative, who is Republican, and we went about it in a very bipartisan way. So we had an honorary chairman of our campaign, who is a beloved Republican woman in town. You saw the picture of her between Dan Brady and Lou Lang, and she is the wife of a retired state senator from this area, and so her Republican credentials are, above and beyond, and she got on board. So, and she has her own story of unequal pay, and she has 7 granddaughters, and she said there's no reason for that, and so that helped us enormously, having this bipartisan approach. And so I think that was the first thing that we really did right. I'll put myself back on mute now and listen.
Thank you very much, Kay.
Kathryn asks AJ to talk about how the ERA would impact survivor benefits or other laws that some say would benefit women. AJ, can you?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So I get frustrated by this question because I will say that there are very few benefits that are specifically benefits only for women. And the one that is even to this day put in the brochures that are the anti-ERA brochures talks about how women are going to lose their Social Security benefits. And that is, it's just a lie. It was a lie when the ERA was first coming out in the 70s. It had been already a change to the laws through court action. And then the Social Security Administration did a revamp on their regulations, and Congress rewrote some of their rules. And so the benefits that one gets under Social Security are not gender specific. They are, all the terms are things like spouse. So there's no Social Security benefit that you will lose because of the ERA. Other benefits like labor laws, for the most part, have all also gone away. The supposed benefits for spousal support, now it's called spousal support, and custody of children, those are all now, for the most part, well, definitely in Illinois, gender neutral. There's probably some variety around the country, but for the most part, most states now have gender neutral laws on family law. And it really comes down to the draft as being sort of the one thing. But, at this point, women can now serve in any area of the military. I'm not sure if there's any other holdouts. And, I guess the draft, which to me seems fair. But I'm hard pressed to find any benefits we would lose. I was at a panel a few weeks ago, and Ann Lewin, who is a professor at John Marshall, she was in the group that did a review of Illinois' statutes after Illinois added the ERA to its constitution. And they went through the statute, and every time it said, man or husband or whatever, they had to propose changes. And she said all the changes that were made were for the benefit of men. They were all these benefits that women got, and because of the changes to Illinois law, men got them as well. So the ERA is going to do a lot for men as well as women.
Okay, Moss asks about women having to register for the draft.
That's possible. It's possible that would be an outcome. Or it would trigger a change in the idea of the draft. I don't know. Are there any other lawyers or constitutional scholars who want to raise their hand? I'm happy to hear more ideas.
I'm not seeing anyone, so maybe we should move to another question about showing the documentary Equal Means Equal. And if you have a large group attending, what is some recommended ways of collecting those people into a network, and what kinds of follow-up activities work best? Maybe Kat, do you want to reply?
Well, we did a screening of Equal Means Equal. As for tapping that energy, I would just say, try to announce at the time of the showing what our next steps would be. Tell them while they're in the room, because if you show the documentary, you're gonna get a bunch of people angry, and you're gonna get them fired up and motivated to work. And it would be very helpful to point them in the right direction before they leave the building. Tell them how they can help, what they can do. Write your legislators, follow up, go find people to talk to their legislators, and that type of thing. That's what I would suggest. And giving them, we ended it with a history of the ERA, so that we were all on the same board, especially when it came to Illinois, knowing what has happened and what is likely to happen and what we need to do. So I think that if you do a showing of Equal Means Equal, definitely. And the people have ended in panels with like Lou Lang has come into the panel in Skokie, I believe, and just make sure to give people a direction before they leave on what they can do is what I would suggest.
If I could add a little bit, yeah, you definitely want to harness that energy before it dissipates. So things that I've done is have postcards right there where they write their reason for the ERAs on one side, and they put on their voting address, and then I collect them and fill in the legislator's address if they didn't know what it was at the time, and stamp them and everything. Again, just making it as like easy and as frictionless as possible. The other thing I've done is I've held up my cell phone and I've walked people through, because everybody's got smartphones now, going to openstates.org and watching them and shaming them to actually look up their guy or their gal and put it in their phone. And, I've just really made it clear that this is what needs to happen, so that while they're in that space before they go. Other possible things that you can do, obviously you want to collect addresses, email addresses, and their voting addresses, because there are some key legislators that we're trying to match. And Lisa, I think yours is in the suburbs, so there's definitely several suburban Collier County representatives that could use a little bit of work. So you're in a key area, and if you can collect as much as possible for future follow-up and help sort of wed the visitor, the person who came with their legislator, and sort of like make that happen with an extra little nudge after the screening, those things are all great. If you have a whole bunch of people in the room, think of something you can do from a social media aspect to show that the screening happened. I know you do Facebook, because I've seen those posts too, but you know, having people have signs that say why the ERA, or have a bunch of people make like a ERA sign, or just do something that's kind of visual and fun, so that when you do future social media posts, you have great graphics that go with it. So those are my immediate suggestions.
Thank you, AJ. It looks like we've run out of questions. Lisa says she has 190 tickets reserved, so that could be a really big event. Progress. And at this point, we're running out of time. And we thank everyone for participating. We especially want to thank AJ and Kathryn for sharing their knowledge and experience, giving us all inspiration and tips, things to do. And we want to close with just a little preview of coming attractions. We're hoping that you will continue to participate in some of our future webinars. Kate, do you want to say anything in closing?
Well, we do invite you to log into our future webinars, and also to suggest future webinars. If you can suggest speakers for future webinars, that would be great. If you want future webinars on public policy, that would also be great. This one's had quite a few responses. I've been thrilled by the number of attendees. So maybe public policy is going to be a good way for us to go. Our next webinar will be on attracting members using social media. And in November, it's likely to be Not Your Grandmother's Book Discussion List. This is a working title, but it sounds rather cool. And we're also going to have a talk from Lisa Cherry at a date to be determined on the gender pay gap. So there's quite a few topics in the pipeline.